All right, so you got your foam roller, you're gonna need it, you're gonna want it. If you don't, you're just gonna go down into a hip flexor stretch, toes are down and back, working on toe mobility, tucking your pelvis, coming up and pushing forward. Now, why do I have you doing this if it's the back of your hip that's bothering you? It's because if you're always fighting against tightness in the front of your hip to produce extension, your glute, or let's say your brain, is going to try to recruit all the muscles in the back of your hip to try to produce extension. And that includes your piriformis and other hip rotators. And so they might be trying to do a job that they're not intended to do, and they get pissed off, and they spasm. And so if we can make hip extension easier, because maybe it's a mobility issue, then just your glute and your glute medius and your hamstrings can do the hip extension, and your hip rotators can just do the rotation, and they don't get angry. So we're actually going to foam roll the front of our hip if we have it. The rest of us are doing a hip flexor stretch. And to do this, we're just going to have our foam roller on the ground, and we're just going to be going up and down on these muscles, kind of where my front pocket is. It's called your TFL, tensor fascia lata, for the long form, and our quads. Both of these hold the potential to limit the amount of extension we can get in our hip. So this guy's going on the ground, and I'm just going right on top of it. And I want to avoid going so far onto my side that I roll over a bone on the side of my hip. And I'm just going to go up and down for about a minute. And just like the back of your hip, it should be something you want to do again. It should be comfortable. If you find a little spot that's a little uncomfortable, maybe you spend a little extra time there, kind of wiggle back and forth, maybe go side to side. You don't just have to go up and down with the foam roller. You can pin and go side to side, kind of scrub the muscle a little bit, give it a different input than just that linear input of stretching and using it. Got about 20 seconds left. Maybe you want to go up and down in your quad a little bit more. It's all good. It's all good. Foam rolling has a lot of room for interpretation. We're going to go and do the other side, and then we're all going to be doing a hip flexor stretch. So if you were stretching, switch sides, and we'll come back and do another one for you. But for the rest of us, we're just foam rolling. If you need to take more pressure off with your opposite foot, be my guest. Let's see, what's going to give you a better show here? There we go. Okay. All right, up and down. Any foam roller is a good foam roller. It can be hard, nubbed. It can be PVC pipe. It can be one of those really soft white ones. They're all good. We've got about 20 more seconds. All right. 10 seconds. And then we're popping down into a stretch. All right, so if you're stretching, go back to the original side. If not, if you were foam rolling, grab a cushion or mat. Put your knee down on. Just like always. Big toe. Tuck your hips. Push them forward as you come up. Trying to open up that muscle now that we relaxed a little bit. I'm squeezing with my back butt cheek. And if you need to, if you're not getting much of a stretch here, go ahead and reach back. But we want to avoid arching our spines back to cause compression in our lumbar spine. We just want our hips to go forward. So I'll go here. But you don't have to. You can have your foot down, working on your big toe mobility, working on opening up your hip. Working on getting or making hip extension easier so those muscles in the back of your hip don't have to work as hard. We're just kind of distributing the forces. We're taking away the amount of effort those guys have to create, the amount of compensations we have to perform. We've been sitting on those muscles all day. Maybe our glutes aren't very strong and we go to do a bunch of glute work. We get fatigued, and then the body says, what else do I have in my repertoire that can cause hip extension? And sometimes the rotators can cause a little bit of that extension and then get spasm and they get irritated because you're asking them to do a job they just don't want to do. And then we're going to switch. If you need to hold on to something for balance, Not a problem. This is not a balance exercise. We're just trying to get as good of a stretch in the front of your hip as possible. Remember, if you're just staying down here, tuck your pelvis and then come up. It's going to allow you to get a better stretch in that front hip. So we're just hanging out, and after this, we're going to do some split squats to kind of use this range of motion, try to solidify the gains in mobility that we've just come up with. It stretches the back of our hip, it stretches the front of our hip, and overall just re-educates our nervous system and our muscular skeletal system, what hip extension is, what hip flexion should be, and what maintaining an upright torso looks like. So we got 10 seconds left. Guess I should hold on while I'm trying to look at the camera. Then we have just a held position. We literally just do nothing and breathe. We then do a plank, and then a little series of three movements pieced together. So this is going away. Once again, split squats aren't a balance exercise. They are good for balance if you don't want to hold on to anything, but we're going to actually step back. Nice long step with your back toes being your support and your front leg having a vertical shin. And as you go down with your back knee, you should have about 90-degree bend in your front knee and your back knee. And then you're up and down, up and down. I'm always squeezing this butt cheek actually, even on the way up and down, to try to get more hip extension. We're doing 3 more for 8. 1, 2, 3. And look at that magic. Didn't even have to move my feet and I'm in the right position. So we're going for 8. Okay, I had to move it a little bit. Squeezing that butt cheek. 2. And how wide are my feet? Head on. I'm on railroad tracks. Okay? So I'm not way out here. If I'm out here, I'd rather you hold on and keep your position here. 4, 5, 3 more. Then have to be really, really wide. And that's going to mess up or kind of put undue stresses on your knees and hips that we don't want. 6, 7, 1 more, and 8. Okay, so all we're going to do now is something called crawling position. This is a developmental position. Babies go through it when they're starting to creep and crawl on the ground. Some people call it army crawling, but what it can do is it can take some of the tension out of your sciatic nerve if it is somewhere down the line having some pressure put on it. Maybe it's a herniated disc, a tight muscle, who knows. But this position is on your belly with your knee out to the side. Some stomach sleepers out there will find that this is the position they sleep in. I know when I used to be a stomach sleeper, this is how I was. It'd be kind of like a figure 4 position. Try not to kick everything over right back here. So you're basically laying on your belly, and you're going to bring your knee out to the side, and you're literally just laying here breathing. I want you to focus on breathing in through your nose, breathing out of your mouth. And if your symptoms were on the right, all you would want to do is do this position on this side and see where it gets you. Maybe you don't feel any change, but maybe it's a comfortable position for you. And we're just going to be here 30 seconds. Then we're going to do the other side. Then we're going to do a plank for 20 seconds on each side. And then do those 3 positions. And then we're all done. All right. And then we're going to change sides. Got my knee out to the side. We're just hanging out. And maybe if this is bothering you, maybe some pillows underneath your hips might be good. Maybe you just want to actually avoid laying on your stomach. Or maybe it feels really good and you want to try something like going into a little bit more extension with your knee bent. Maybe this provides you with the relief you're looking for. We're going to go about another 5 seconds. We're going to switch back to the original side. And so here we're going to be doing a plank. And our points of contact are going to be, for me, it's going to be my right foot, inside foot, the right inside of my knee, my left leg or my left knee in both hands. So I'm down here, I'm in that crawling position, I'm a little up, because I'm gonna lift my hips, and this is all I'm doing. And I'm gonna be here for 20 seconds. It's gonna use your obliques a little bit more than your abdominals. It's gonna use your hip flexors, but you're maintaining a nice neutral spine. You're not going into extension and you're not dumping into flexion. Then we're gonna switch in 2 seconds. So then I have this leg back and down, go back out, and I'm up here. Just working on a little bit of trunk stability. Trunk stability plays a huge part in almost all of those sciatica causing conditions that I mentioned at the beginning of this. But a lot of times before we're able to actually start addressing trunk stability, we have to calm the nervous system down. We have to kind of go with symptom management, and then we can do a little bit of trunk stability. And then we can, do a little bit of symptom management the next time, and a little bit more trunk stability. And then we do hip strengthening and trunk stability, and we gradually work our way back from symptom management as they progressively come back up into the leg and eventually into the back, and then they go away. Something we call centralization. And then we can work more towards strength training, core stability, power work, strength work, all these things. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit, sorry. We can do all these things that are more athletic and can help prevent those sciatic symptoms from coming back. And so just because we might have structural changes in our spine or in our hip that might cause sciatic symptoms every once in a while doesn't mean that we have to just suffer with them all the time. People with herniated discs get better all the time. Research points out that usually even without physical therapy or rehab or chiropractic care, most people who are suffering from a herniated disc will be back to their pre-symptomatic condition within 6 months, okay? Doing nothing. No exercise, no stretching, no whatever it is, no modalities, no surgery. But those who get taken care of, or those who work on the way they move and feel, typically feel better faster, and they have fewer reoccurrences of those issues. And so this last thing that we're going to do is just progressing through a mini cobra to a quadruped position, so hands and knees, and then introducing some hip extension to it all. And so for those of you whose back pain might be related to flexion, maybe you don't like bending over, maybe that elicits your symptoms, you're going to like this. For those of you who don't like going backwards into extension, I'm going to suggest just keeping a neutral spine while you do this. The rest of you, you're going to want to actually go into extension. And so we're going in a cobra position, to hands and knees, to hip extension. And we're going to make 5 of these, and then we're done. So you're going to start here, where you're going to make a cobra. So your hands are underneath your shoulders. From here, I'm going to push, and I'm going to do about a half cobra. So I load my spine up into extension. And from this position, I'm going to scoot forward a little bit. And from this position, I'm going to hinge my hips and get up onto my knees. And you'll see that I did not lose that position in my low back. So if I go back down to my chest, or if I go back down onto my hips, I'm still elevated off the floor with my chest. So this is cobra to quadruped. And this might be where you stop. You might like doing these. So we're at 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to add a little piece to that, and it's hip extension. Hip extension. So we're going to go and do 5 more from the bottom to the top, and then we're all done. So you're going to come down, all the way down. Little cobra, quadruped, hip extension, down. There's 1. Hip extension, 2. Cobra, quadruped, hip extension, and there's 3. Cobra, quadruped, extension, 4. We got 1 more. Cobra,